It is Monday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here, Patrick Reusse here with me as well. Well, sometimes the rundown is a little bit of a challenge, Patrick, like what we're going to talk about today. I think it's pretty clear cut. We've got two main topics. Timberwolves, now even 2-2 in their series with Memphis after a very eventful games 3 and 4 at Target Center. And we got to talk about the Twins because, Patrick, I was ready to give up on them after 12 games, and then Byron Buxton's made me care about them again. So let's start, though, with the Wolves, Patrick, and just, I came to this realization after they won game 4, after giving up that 26-point lead and then the 25-point lead in game 3 and losing. And, it's like we sit there and watch these games and we observe them in a certain way. And we're like, we're like, we have the stats in front of us. We're watching like what the runs are and, things like that. Players play an entirely different game than what we watch. They're just playing. They have no idea. I mean, they have some idea like with momentum and stuff, but they have no idea what the specifics are. They don't know that they've lost a 25-point lead necessarily. They don't know the history. They don't come into game 4 saying, all hope is lost. They just think, it's a game of runs. Let's go get them in game 4. And I guess that's what happened because they play a different game than we watch.
Yeah, I've come to that conclusion about the last 5 or 6 years. The whole idea that there's a distraction taking place with a team if some guy gets arrested, or if it's not your quarterback or something. We spend a lot of time worried about distractions and disturbances, and these guys don't care. They don't care if one of their guys gets arrested. What the hell, or whatever it is, whatever the distraction is, they're in it for themselves. They're in it to have their own careers and make as much money as they possibly can. And they will shrug off all that stuff that we think is really, really important to their emotional outlook, right? Yes. Now, if there was ever a team that you thought was going to no-show, it was the Timberwolves after that ungodly fiasco last week. Worst loss I've ever seen a team have. We were a worldwide joke. Yes. And then now I want to know, is Ja Morant getting blistered and said he can't play in the big games? And is he, is he an overrated phony like Cat was? Is anybody on him? He's had a bad series, right? Yeah. And last year they won their opener and then got beat 4 straight in the playoffs. So is he now not a big game player? It's Cat's performance in the playoff game, and then game 3, game 1, pretty unexplainable, but it's it's also basketball and it's also life. You have good nights and bad nights, right? So it was I think a pretty phenomenal performance, that because of what our expectations were. That I was wondering, my theory was, okay, the crowd let them off the hook when they lost game 3 because the crowd was just stunned. They didn't boo them off the court or anything, right? I thought, okay, you got a tuned up crowd that's been drinking, and now it's 9-10 when you throw the ball up, or 9-15 or whatever it is. And my theory was, okay, if they come out and start stinking it up, these people are going to let them have it. But that didn't happen because the Wolves were in the lead more often than not. But what's also interesting is Timberwolves fans have been very upset with the refereeing a couple of times, right?
Yes.
Memphis is now convinced they lost because of the referees in game 4. So right. It is quite the emotional ride. But let me say something else that's unbelievably interesting to me. I turned on the Denver Golden State game with about 8 minutes to go yesterday. Denver has zero chance to win that series, right? They're down 3-0.
Yes.
That crowd was insane as they were going to win. They were nuts. The NBA, we get whenever we get in on them around here and we write a lot, you get the people, nobody cares about the Wolves. They stink. You know what makes close NBA playoff games amazing? There are so many moments. And I know they can delay it forever with their timeouts and needless reviews and all that other nonsense. But, you know, you're going to have, there's going to be how many scoring chances? 150, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. In hockey, you got 8. Okay. You got 10. You got 12. I know hockey crowds can get revved up, but the NBA and basketball, A, you're in this tiny enclosed arena where you can see everything that goes on. And B, it's an emotional roller coaster because there's so many opportunities to screw up or to make a great play. They're endless. So, but that said, now Charles got the last laugh in game 3, and now Cat gets the last laugh in game 4, and we'll see who gets the last laugh here. But your biggest problem playing Memphis now is this Bane guy making 3-pointers. Somebody's got to guard him because they're doing a good job of staying in front of Ja and not letting him. You got to make him shoot because he's not a shooter, right?
Right.
But Bane has been terrific, and that game itself, even though you end up winning it, it shouldn't have been a 1-pointer. Should have been at the end. I mean, once again they made it interesting, but it's fun. It's also reminding us of something we haven't known around here very often, and that's the intensity of the playoffs, because even when Tibbs's team went, you knew they had no chance to beat Houston more than once, maybe twice outside, and they beat them once. There's some anticipation here. And then you look around. Now, Golden State looks great, but Phoenix doesn't have Booker. They might not be Saints. And then you got Dallas or Utah. Who cares? What if you get through this series? I mean, Golden State's really good, but in a different sort of way. Can Draymond Green really guard Cat? I don't know. I'm not getting ahead of myself here because I still like Memphis to win the series. But there's some possibilities out there with this whole playoff situation right now that certainly didn't exist when they tipped off game 4.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Yeah, Devin Booker injuring his hamstring in game 2 totally changed the landscape of the West. I mean, the West is as wide open now as I can remember it being. And I think you're right. Again, Memphis is a very good team. They had 10 more wins than the Wolves in the regular season. They have the home court advantage again back now. So they've got, a real, the upper hand in going up 3-2. But, we've seen this has been a pretty even series. And you could even argue that for more stretches than not, the Wolves have perhaps been the better team in this series. If we're talking about, most of game 1, not really any of game 2, but the better part of game 3 and the better part of game 4. I mean, 3 out of the 4 games, they were probably the better team for the majority of the time. So they're going to feel relatively good about themselves. They've obviously have to feel good about what Towns did in, game 4. And you're right. I was expecting a no-show. I thought they were going to get run by 20 points. I really did. I just thought they're going to come out and they're not going to have the energy or the juice to kind of get themselves back off the mat after what happened in game 3. And so that to me was it was impressive. I mean, just what Cat did, what the team did. I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't think Jordan McLaughlin's going to make all his 3-pointers. They're not going to shoot 50% from 3-point range every game. But, then again, Desmond Bane's not going to make all those threes every game too. I mean, there's some things on each side that you can't bank on for the rest of the series. So, like you're saying, we haven't experienced a lot of series, not just in the NBA, but overall. I mean, the Twins haven't been in a series since 2004 when they took game one from the Yankees. Like, we just haven't really seen series around here for a long time. Maybe the Wild last year going 7 was an exception, but aside from that, it just hasn't really happened. You haven't really experienced the full intensity of a back and forth kind of series.
Yeah, the Wild really don't get proper credit for their incredible mediocrity that they've had around here. They've been here now 20 well, you got to subtract one season. So is this year 21, right?
I think this is year 21. Yes.
21, season 21. They've gotten through the second round once, just the Wolves who've been here 30 years and they've only gotten through the through the first round then they got through the second round too. But it's something that, you look around the NBA, you got this dead NBA town, New Orleans, and those people are going nuts. And it's been if you're not worried about your TV ratings because of the size of the markets, it's been a really good couple of weeks for the NBA since the playoffs started, with you having the people here fired up to a degree, the people in New Orleans fired up, markets where it doesn't generally happen. So they've, think you turn on the playoff games and the crowds are quite crazy. That's for sure. But you're right. I had zero expectations for Saturday night's game. You know what else? The biggest shocker of Saturday night, though.
What's that?
Wasn't the Wolves showing up. It was that I had a Wolves gamer in my morning paper on Sunday. Now, there wasn't a lot of us, I know that, but the fact that the Star Tribune made some of the press run with a game that ended at 12:20. And so they did that with a game that ended today when you were reading the paper Sunday. It ended today. So I was very proud of our troops who were putting out that paper, because I did not expect to read a couple of coherent column by Sue Ann and a great gamer by Chris Hine on a game that I basically felt like I just watched when I woke up at 6:30 in the morning. Right. So
it was old school.
Congratulations to us. Okay. So
it was like the time it was 2001. I drove to Chicago with Seaford. It was the first game after 9/11, and they had rescheduled the game for a week later, and we drove and we got back. Seaford didn't want to stay over Sunday. He wanted to come back. So we drove back after the game Sunday, and I dropped him off at his house at like 5 a.m. But first we stopped at a gas station and picked up a newspaper from the game we just covered. It was amazing.
It is. Anyway, well, I'm trying to figure out, do we have Wolves bars now? We used to be able to find in St. Paul, if the Wilder, and you just go to one of those St. Paul bars right down to.
Yeah.
It's been so long, I don't even know if we have Wolves bars where they'll be watching the game Tuesday night. So
I bet there'll be some. But you know what? It's a good question. I think our sports editor might have brought this up the other day. Like, there's kind of been, because of the pandemic, I think there's been a handful of sports bars even that have not survived in the last few years.
The one right out on 55, right on the other side of the freeway, I think, went under. So, which is a big one. There's one out here near me on 394. But you're right. That there have been a number of them that went under. That's for sure. So anyway,
go ahead.
It's who else made a comeback on Saturday after we were all wondering about him? Finchy boy.
Yeah.
Finch, a very poorly coached game, and not because he didn't call timeouts, but because he came up with no way for them to get the ball to Cat. Maybe we want to blame Cat for not going and getting the ball, but if you let your star player play a tie-breaking game in a playoff series and only get 4 shots off, a lot of that's on you. And he had a terrible game. He was not ready for that game, but he bounced back, and they had a game plan, and they showed up, and and as you said, they got a miracle performance from McLaughlin. So it was fun. It was great.
I like Finch too, that is not afraid to rip himself. And it's easier to rip yourself, once I think those were all post-game comments where he's talking about, ripping himself for not calling the timeouts, ripping himself for not playing McLaughlin earlier in the series, stuff like that. And some of that's just for effect, I'm sure. But, he is willing to criticize himself sometimes.
Yes. And that's a rare trait in a lot of guys, especially at that level. So, but you're right. The real test would have been if they lose game 4 and him to stand up and say, I might have screwed up this series by not calling a timeout in game 3. That's the real test to see if you put it on yourself. But he bounced back. So, they'll have tremendous TV ratings in the Twin Cities on Tuesday, I'm sure, whether you choose. I'm a Charles guy. I got to go with Charles. Although I forgot to turn over to see if on game 3 if Benzie and Jim Pete survived the evening. I was a little worried about their mental health after that. There were no excuses to be made, that's for sure. So anyway, worst for a one standalone game. Boy, it's right up there with humiliating defeats in the history of Minnesota pro sports.
Yeah.
To kick that game away twice was just unbelievable. And to come back, hey, good for them.
Game 5, I got no idea what to expect. Again, I wish I could say otherwise, but I mean, it's, the series has been so unpredictable, so back and forth. Go back to Memphis, nice 6:30 start time for that Tuesday game. But yeah, I mean,
Mike, it could be whether they decide to call 3 fouls on Cat in the first period or not, too. Because this time, call fouls on him. You can call fouls on you just make up your mind which guy you're going to call the fouls on that night, Jackson or him or somebody else. So, if just because he didn't get in foul trouble this game doesn't mean he shouldn't watch himself on, because now that Memphis has whined about the officials, there's a very good chance that it'll lean in their direction on, Tuesday night. So, yeah,
that's the way it goes. It should be a great one though. It's been it's been an entertaining series. No doubt about it. Speaking of entertaining series, Patrick, like I said at the jump, Twins were 4-8 before Chicago came to town. White Sox have been struggling in their own right, presumed division favorites, but they had lost a few in a row before they got here. Twins sweep them 4 games. Now they're 8-8, and they cap it all off with Byron Buxton hitting 2 home runs on Sunday, including the bottom of the 10th moonshot walk-off deep to left field. So now they're 8-8. They won a couple squeakers over the weekend. 2-1 in one of those games where they rallied in the 8th inning. Again, a team that's hard to figure out. Maybe a good reminder that baseball is a long season and 4-8 doesn't doom you. But after last year's start, I was getting worried that you don't want to start bad again because last year's bad start kind of doomed them for good.
Well, after Friday night's win, their team batting average was 201, arguably. So, they won that game 2-1 because somehow Ryan Jeffers managed to put a bat in a ball and hit a double, and then that inning got all chaotic. And and then the new reliever, the new closer, it only took him 34 pitches to load the bases and get the call on a 3-2 pitch that could have gone either way. I think luckily for the Twins, Bill Welke, the veteran umpire, just wanted to get the damn game over with because they'd already been there 3.5 hours. So that helped. But then you come back and Buxton. Here's the big shock about Buxton. Doc Rocco let him play 2 games in a row. It was incredible. He first came back from the whatever this latest non-injury was, and that DH'd in Kansas City, and then they couldn't let him play Friday because he had to rest after DHing. But he got to play both games over the weekend. My thing watching Buxton, and they said that one of the stories I read, it was the longest walk-off home run in the StatCast era.
Wow.
469, the longest walk-off to win a game. I mean, it was amazing where that ball went. I wasn't at the game, but we have a great picture today. You can see all the people behind the stands watching the ball sail. People down there in the Champions Club seats, they got their mouths open already because the crack of the bat must have been amazing. And you don't think of him really as that strong, but that swing is. But my number one reaction watching him when he actually plays is he's a phenomenal lesson on how difficult baseball is, and how it's the only sport really that we have that you have to get better and better and better to make it to the big leagues, right? And then once you get here, you have to keep getting better, because he was helpless for about 3 years, right?
Yes.
I mean, he would get in these. Yesterday, he struck out 3 times, right? And the ball was the first, I think, Giolito, both of those were, the ball was up on him, right? And he kind of went out and tried to get it. But the old Buxton would have been shot for the whole night. He would have went up there and shot for the whole game. He would have went up there and hacked at anything. But this guy, he went down and hit. He went down and away and hit a home run out to right center. And then he hit this mammoth shot on a pitch that you got to have something special going on. It was supposedly 98, right? And up.
Yeah.
Right. That's where Hendricks threw where he wanted to. Hendricks has got to be the most shocked man of all time that Buxton got his swing perfectly timed on that pitch, because that's a foul straight back pitch if you've ever seen one, even if you're on it. And to hit it dead central and smash it like that is just something that, when this guy was 22, 23, 24 and trying to break into the big leagues, even 25, would have had no chance on. And it's one of the most amazing swings I've seen in Twins history, to get up and get that pitch and hit it that far. It's by the way, I think we must be using the golf ball again, don't you?
I don't know. It's the home runs are. What's that?
The runs aren't, but when the ball is flying when you do get it, but the runs are way down because the hitters are way behind and the number of relief pitchers and everything. But the runs are way behind. But that ball had a heartbeat, man. When he hit it, it was unbelievable.
I think the bigger upset, Patrick, it was Friday, April 15th that he got hurt originally, and they came out the next day and said about a week, and I was very skeptical of that with the timeline. He came back after like 6 days.
Yeah, he missed 5 games, and you have to be skeptical because last year each one of his injuries lasted 2 or 3 weeks longer than it was supposed to, right? So he's not a great healer. Now we did have people on Twitter last night comparing him to Puckett, the 2 best players they've ever seen, and for the Twins uniform of the modern generation and all that stuff. Yeah, there's one little difference. From 1985 to 1993, so 84 to 93, Puck averaged 157 games a year.
Yeah.
So, and this guy, before he started playing this time, had played 215 out of 540 or something like that.
Wow.
So I mean, he's still got to go a month without having to leave the lineup before we can get crazy about him. But the talent is there. But then again, to call him the best player in the world is ridiculous because we don't see him play enough. So we'll just have to see. Maybe the best talent in the world, but certainly not the best player in the world.
Maybe equally shocking, Patrick, Dylan Bundy. I was crushing them for signing Dylan Bundy, even if it was just a relatively low risk flyer on Dylan Bundy. Just didn't see what he had to offer. Figured it was just one of these kind of reclamation projects. He was not good, in a lot of these recent seasons, specifically last year, right? When his ERA was way up there last season, and, just a few starts so far. So let's not get carried away, but whatever they want him to do sure seems like it's working, because he's getting those, 5 innings and just mowing them down for 5 and then getting out of there. And he's got 3 wins. 3 out of their 8 wins this year have been Dylan Bundy victories. And the starting pitching by and large has been pretty good. I know, they're not asking them to work super deep into games yet, but man, Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober have been good. Especially Joe Ryan. And, if they're getting quality starts from Dylan Bundy, or, at least 5 good innings from Dylan Bundy, it's holding together pretty well for now, at least.
Yeah, it is now. I watched Bundy, and I'm one of these guys who loves, old timer who loves to complain about hooking starters and stuff like that. But you could see the logic of this guy being their 5 and fly guy, right? Because that is not great stuff. It's throw it over stuff, right? Throw strikes, try to hit decent spots. But I don't think you want him to be overexposed. And so you get 5 innings out of him, maybe 2 batters into the 3rd time around. That's enough. Let your bullpen try to do it. I think your best way to have him remain effective, and there'll be some clunkers, obviously, is to use him exactly like they're using him now. And don't worry if he's only throwing 73 pitches after 5 innings. We all like to complain about, not all of us, but a lot of us like to complain about, wow, they used to throw 120 pitches, blah, blah, blah. I don't want this guy throwing that many pitches. I don't want the hitters seeing him that often, because there's nothing really special about the pitches he's throwing. It's just throwing a 91-mile-an-hour fastball, halfway decent breaking ball. But that's not going to be one of those guys when the other team's saying, oh, man, I'm glad we got him out of the game.
Right.
He's not going to intimidate anybody. Let me say this about the White Sox.
Okay.
And I said this in March, late March. Seasons, unless you're the Dodgers, like they are this year, or in the Yankees most years, seasons have vibes for these. The White Sox aren't a mid-market team, but they're a mid-market money machine, right? I mean, this side, they've always been number 2 in the Chicago market. Lynn gets hurt. They've a couple other pitchers. One of that lefty they had that was good, Crochet or whatever his name is. Tommy John. They lost another pitcher in spring training. They lost the 3rd baseman right before the season started, Moncada. They've had a couple other guys get hurt here. I said in spring, like in March, to people, if not publicly, they got the bad vibe going. It's they let Rodon go too, right? Rodon,
yeah,
he's unbelievable, and they got the bad vibe. And right now they've lost 7 in a row. I went on a week-long road trip. I stumbled onto the post-game show with Ozzie Guillen and Frank Thomas yesterday, which may be the greatest one single team show in America. And Ozzie and Frank were killing him for pitching to Buxton. Oh, now Guillen was saying, I know what Tony was thinking, because the rise is on deck. He said, but right now he's the best hitter in the game when he's playing. And but they were hysterical and in full panic down there in Chicago for the Whiteys having lost 7 in a row. So I'm not writing them off, but we were all talking about this being an improved division. 85 might win it.
Yeah.
85 might win it this year. So, because there's a lot of mediocrity in it.
Yes.
But I think we got that terrible. We don't have the terrible team that's going to win 63, like the Central usually does.
Going to be a bunch of 72s and 73s, though, aren't there?
or at least, they get to play each other. Now, this is the last year they're going to be playing each other 19 times. So there's going to be, next year they're going to a more balanced schedule with a lot more National League games. So this is your last year to pick on each other and beat up the bad team in the division. So it's probably going to be a division where an 85-win team wins it every year. The way it could be, but right now, yeah, it's a mud wrestling competition with the White Sox having fallen back down to the rest of the pack.
Yeah, makes it interesting. I mean, again, in baseball, just like the Wolves, the narrative changed completely on the Twins in the last few days. I mean, I don't think anybody was seriously saying season's over when they were 4-8, but you weren't feeling good about it. And same with the Wolves, you were saying, well, this is not going to be, you lose game 3. How are they going to make a series out of this? And then next thing you know, the Twins are back to 500 and the Wolves are back to 500 in the series. So I don't know. We don't know what to expect. That's what makes it fun. Quickly, Wild won again.
One more thing.
Yeah.
He had to take Ryan Jeffers. What is he? 6'3", 220. This kid.
Yeah.
A catcher. He had a knee contusion. A catcher having a knee contusion. How many catchers there's never a catcher who comes out of a game without a knee contusion when they're fouling balls off him left and right. They're catchers. You don't have to scratch him before the game because of a knee contusion. He's got a bruise on his knee. You think, God almighty, Doc Rock drives me nuts. I don't know. When Sanchez comes in and says he can't play, that's one thing. When you go to the catcher and beg him not to play because he's got a bruise on his knee, that's a different thing. So
there you go. It's your 2022 crusade, but I love it. Wild won again. They beat Nashville. They're duking it out with St. Louis, man.
That's a great win because Nashville needed it. They're still trying to, get in the playoffs, and they needed that one. They're playing them at home. The Wild had every reason to be complacent because they won. How many games in a row now without a loss? Is it 10 or something?
It's at least 10 because they're 8-0-2 in their last 10. So 8 wins, 2 overtime losses in that stretch, overtime shootout.
Warning on Twitter that they're the first team in the NHL era of ties being a point that to have 3 10-game streaks where they got a point in each game.
No,
or something.
I didn't hear that, but that makes sense.
Some stat like that. So, yeah. I mean, the standings are all different because, ties aren't losses, but, or ties aren't ties. They're, you can get those wins. But I mean, they're good. There's no doubt about it. But here's the deal. First round playoff series, no matter who gets home ice, it doesn't really make any difference anymore in the NHL.
Yeah.
Toss them in St. Louis. The Wild will be favored by if the betting lines on the series, the Wild will be like 110 to make 100. They'll be a very slight favorite to win the playoff series with St. Louis, and so it's going to be a coin flip, no matter how these two teams end up finishing. But the Wild, they don't have much left. What do they got? 3 left?
3 left, yeah.
To win them all, right? I mean, they don't play anybody at all left. There's nobody left, really. I mean, the last game of the year is Colorado here, but Colorado's not going to bring their team, right?
No, they got to play Calgary before that. Calgary's a division leader, but that one's wrapped up too, so they've got nothing to play for either.
Yeah, I guess Calgary could maybe give them Calgary's seed. Are they trying to catch anybody points wise?
No, I mean they're 10 clear of the Oilers, but they're 8 behind Colorado. So I don't think they got much I don't think there's much for them to play for either necessarily.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, it could be a very long spring, and if it turns into a short spring, the Wild fans are not going to be happy. But
no,
the Wild fans are always happy. That's the one thing about them. they are not held to a real high standard around here. If they're competitive, we get very excited. So,
well, they better do it this year because the Suter and Parisi bills come due next year and beyond. So this is a good year to make a playoff run and get to bank up some equity with your fan base, because they got some hard decisions to make next year.
So they haven't paid Fiala, right?
Right.
Yeah. He picked a good year to get 90 points or whatever it is.
He's been good.
He's been great the second half.
Yeah.
We just got to hope that the NHL doesn't follow Wimbledon and say you can't play Russians. That wouldn't be good for our boys. So
that would be tough. Yeah, that would put a dent in the lineup here for sure, because he's been Kaprizov. We've talked about him plenty over the last 2-3 months, but man, he is something special. I mean, the Stars came out to play. Buxton, Towns, Kaprizov. It was their weekend, and it's it's a fun time to be watching sports here, because we don't always get treated to these runs here in this town. It's sometimes it's just a lot more gloom and doom, and this one's been a little bit of a mixture, and that makes it pretty fun.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've always said, either give me dramatic victory or excruciating defeat. I don't like anything in between. That's as a neutral sports writer, I'll go with either. I don't really care. But it's the Wolves gave us both in a
yes.
2-day period. So congratulations to them.
If you root for the story, the Wolves are they're doing their job right now. Well, Patrick, good stuff. We'll talk to you again next week. All right.
All right, Michael. Thank you.